Welcome to Better Together with your hosts, Emily Italia and Jennifer Morrow. When we all work together, we are stronger and can accomplish more for the kingdom of God. And now, here are the hosts of Better Together, Emily Italia and Jennifer Morrow.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Better Together. I'm Jen Morrow.
I'm Emily Italia.
And with us in studio today, we have a special guest, James King. Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah.
For having me.
Excited to have you back.
Thank you.
James is the executive director of the New Jersey Catholic Conference, which is the public policy arm of the state's Catholic bishops.
Correct.
I'm so proud that I have that all down now. Like, I think you're the only guest ever, whether it's this show or podcast, I can do it off the top of my head.
Oh, that's great because not many people can. I don't think I can. So it's comforting to know somebody can do it.
Yes,
So.
yeah, that's it. You're about it.
Okay.
My title and your title. That's all I got.
That even makes it even more special. Thank you, Jen. I really appreciate that.
And my childhood phone number. Those are the only things I remember. So how are you, Emily?
I'm doing great, Jen. How have you been doing?
Good. What's been going on in the Diocese of Trenton?
We are focused, like everyone, in the middle of Lent, working through it. And it's been a challenging one personally this year. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
But we had some wonderful helps in our most recent issue of the Monitor. It's our March issue. We have Pope Leo on the front.
Oh, nice.
And this was actually a screenshot that was taken from the peace video, the Prayer for Peace video that he did.
Yeah.
And also Bishop O'Connell, even before everything that's been going on in recent media reporting, we had been planning to focus on peace in our issue, and Bishop O'Connell has actually been focusing on that. He did a wonderful talk, Soup and Scripture talk in northern Burlington County for several parishes that had gathered together. And I just wanted to pull out this quote from him. I thought it was so great. First, he quotes Pope Leo, who said, "The Christian who lives in peace becomes a lighthouse. Storms may rage, but the light does not flicker." And he just said how beautifully that sums up our Christian life and how we can be that example. And Bishop O'Connell then said, "Your witness matters. Your calm presence, your steady faith, your years of prayer. These are lighthouses for younger generations who often feel overwhelmed by noise, speed, and anxiety." And I thought that was just poignant. I mean, that really hit me in just thinking about Lent and slowing down and focusing more on prayer life and drawing close to Jesus in our personal relationships, and just kind of want to focus on this quote a little bit more, just being that example, that lighthouse for other people. So
Beautiful imagery.
Isn't it nice?
Yeah.
So you can find that in our March issue of the Monitor on, I believe it's pages 7 and 8. And then also going on right now, I believe it starts today, is a Shroud of Turin display that's taking place in the Hamilton area parishes. It's being displayed at St. Gregory the Great starting today, and it goes through March 26th. And the display is titled, "Who is the Man of the Shroud?" And then there will be some corresponding talks that take place in the Hamilton parishes, a part of their cohort. So it'll be March 23rd, 24th, and 25th. At St. Greg's, at Our Lady of Sorrows, and St. Raphael Holy Angels in Hamilton. And for all of the times and places, you can look at stgregorythegreatchurch.org. That's stgregorythegreatchurch.org for all of that. So I'm going to try to get over there. I think I'd like to see that. We had a wonderful guest a while back talking about the Shroud of Turin that really piqued my interest, and I'd like to kind of follow that up with another in-person opportunity.
Is he involved in this?
I don't think so. No,
Okay.
this is a traveling display. I believe it goes throughout the United States.
Mm-hmm.
There's a corresponding one, different organization that is doing one in Washington, D.C. I think that has also started, and that one is running through Easter Sunday.
Okay.
So, but information for that is available in the article if anybody's interested.
Nice.
So,
All right.
yeah. How about what's going on in Camden?
Camden's been busy, as all the dioceses are, and we actually, James here and I have seen each other recently as well. James King can talk more about this, obviously, than me, because I came in at the very last minute of this. I was invited at the last minute, but I'm so happy to be invited. But the Archdiocese of Philadelphia and the Diocese of Camden went down together. They took 2 buses to Washington, D.C. on March 5th.
Yeah.
Yep, and went to Washington to meet with some of our legislators. Jim, you want to explain a little bit more about that?
Sure. So I think this idea came about back in November timeframe of 2025, and one of the auxiliary bishops of Philadelphia contacted Bishop Williams, Bishop Chris Cook, who's one of the auxiliaries down there, and it was really trying to figure out what can we do to address what's going on in immigration right now, what we're seeing with some of the raids, the detentions, the mass migrations, and so the fear in the community. And it was a desire to find something more than just, okay, we're praying about this, we're trying to raise awareness. Some people are going and doing protests and rallies, but the bishops really were like, what more can we do? And from there, in those conversations, it was simply, why don't we go see our elected officials in Washington who can address this issue through legislation, regulation. So the conversation started then, and it was, why don't we just see if we can take a couple buses of people down and set up meetings and have a very charitable, diplomatic conversation and just try to bring the reality of the situation, the fear of the situation, to the doorstep of our members of Congress and ask them, what can we do? What can be done legislatively? What can be done here in Washington to address this issue? And, like any project in the church, from there it just kept growing. Next thing we knew, it was first was Camden and Philadelphia, and then Rhode Island got involved, then Baltimore got involved, and the list of people just kept growing in terms of who was going down. So I think we ended up, all told, maybe 80 people from those areas. Maybe I would think it's more over 100 with Baltimore,
Okay, nice.
but I didn't get their number. But we had 2 buses leave Philadelphia from and that was Philadelphia members and Camden members, and some people took their car.
Some people took their
your
car.
down, met us down there. But it really was. I think it was a great witness to when we talk about faithful citizenship, because a lot of times, and I know I've been here before to talk about that, and it really focuses on voting. But this is the other aspect about going and being advocates, and being advocates in a Christian way, not demonizing, not vilifying, not attacking, but trying to find a fruitful conversation and to speak truth, but do it in a manner of charity.
Right. You're raising awareness about the downstream effects of policies that maybe on the surface people would agree with, but not realizing, okay, well, it's going to have this effect. And maybe that's an unintended effect, or it's more wide sweeping or widespread than anticipated. And, how do we deal? I mean, these are real people, all of us are created in the image and likeness of God. And so we have to recognize that in our policies and how we represent people.
Yes.
And some of our asks, to use Jim's word, asks, so professional,
Yeah.
because that's what they are.
You ready to take my job? Go right ahead.
Look, I just got
You're
your
a prof-
title.
you're
I
a prof-
can't
You're
get
a
a new
professional
one.
at it now.
Was the so that priests and sisters can come in on like a religious visa? Is that right?
Yes. So one of the bills that we are currently lobbying on nationally with USCCB is the Religious Workforce Protection or Reauthorization Act. The titles always get me, so I don't have that title. I have my title down, but I have the legislative title. But essentially, it would streamline the process to grant R1 visas and make it a little bit easier for religious workers who are currently here on that visa to renew their visa. There's a lot of, and not to get too into the weeds on it, but there's, it is a little bit burdensome. And having myself, I've worked in pastoral care for migrants and refugees at one time, and we oversaw all of the ethnic communities for the Catholic Church, and a big part of that work was identifying foreign-born priests to come here on the religious worker visa. And I can tell you that nothing disrupts the continuity, the unity of a community than a priest who has to, renew their visa, but they have to do it through a process of leaving the country, staying out for so long, and then trying to come back in. And when that happens, you're cutting people off from the access to the sacraments, pastoral care, and everything a pastor would do for their parish. So I ask people, imagine if you're at your parish with your beloved pastor, and all of a sudden they said, I'm sorry, I have to leave, and it might be for 6 months, it might be for a year, and there's not going to be anybody here to replace me on a regular basis. I mean, just think of the disruption that would bring to your own spiritual life and your daily life, and that seems to resonate with people and understand that. So we're hopeful. I know that the administration has taken several steps through regulation to try to fix some of these issues. But we always say regulations are great; they help, but the most solid way to fix a problem at times is through legislation, because then they can't be changed easily. So we're optimistic. Again, it's not. There's a lot going on down in Washington right now. So when that bill may move and when we could see action on it is still up in the air. But I think it was a very fruitful conversation, and one that members, even those who may disagree with the church on other points with immigration, could get on board because they understood that. So.
Yeah, I think that was one thing that opened everybody's eyes. We took, the Diocese of Camden took a delegation of about 15 people, priests, in addition to Bishop Williams. It was some priests, deacons, sisters, and then laity who work in their parish ministries with and Catholic Charities, but the laity who work in different social justice ministries in the parishes. And we met with lawmakers on both sides of the aisle. We met with Senator Andy Kim's rep, one of his staffers. We met with George Norcross.
Donald. George. That's okay. Congressman Norcross.
I practiced that the entire way in the car.
That's okay.
I did. And Jeff Van Drew.
Yeah, I have to say though, the Congressman Norcross was a surprise because the Catholic Conference was simply asked just to help coordinate the meetings. I mean, and I said this throughout the process that this is the Diocese of Camden's representatives meetings. This is the bishops' meetings. We're not, this isn't our meeting. This is your meeting, but we're happy to use our connections down in Washington to get this schedule set up for you. And throughout that entire process, we were going to meet with the staffer for Congressman Norcross, and when we showed up, lo and behold, he was in his office waiting for us, and welcomed us in, and I think we had a nice 45-minute discussion with him, which is very generous for a member of Congress to meet with you for 45 minutes. Yeah. So it was and then Congressman Van Drew as well met with us too, and so we're just. It was nice that they, we were very happy that they gave their time, because a lot of times you are just meeting with a staffer given how hectic the schedule is. Yeah. So the fact that the members themselves met with us was great.
And I think one of the key takeaways was that we all have a voice. It's write your congressman, visit, set up a visit. You, especially Jim, expressed the importance of meeting with the staffers as well, and because they take those conversations back, and from firsthand experience working with Chris Smith back in the day. So it matters. Make your voices heard. If one voice is heard. I remember when we were in Trenton, when I was in Trenton with you, and one of our beloved reporters, Lois Rogers. Yeah. Lois Rogers would. Probably a lot of people in Trenton know of Lois. Lois would call Chris Smith's office all the time. And I'll tell you, sometimes he got back to her. She was a well-known voice around there. Okay, Lois has an issue. And Lois he listened. They listened. So I always thought Lois was always a good example to me that our voice matters. And that was, to me, reiterated when we went down to Washington.
Yeah, no, 100%. And, I said this in some of the briefings leading up to the meetings down there as we were kind of doing the final prep work, to reiterate what you just said, that when you speak to a staffer, it's not being handed off, or it's not a sign of disrespect, because the members do listen to their staffers. And I drew from my experience with Congressman Smith. I spent a lot of time driving him to and from events, and it was one-on-one time. And he'd be working, on a speech or a legislation that he was drafting, and out of the blue, he'd be like, "What do you think about this? What are you hearing about that?" And at 25 years old, I'm like, "I'm just supposed to drive you," but I'd give him he really wanted to know, and it made me more conscientious when I was in meetings with constituents of how I have to pay attention and really, be attentive to what they're communicating because he wanted to know that.
Wanted to hear it.
So.
Yeah, those squeaky wheels.
Not that I wasn't,
right.
not that I wasn't paying attention. I'm just saying it just reemphasized the
Yeah,
importance of it.
The importance
So,
of it, absolutely.
Right, because it can be easy to assume, well, who am I? I'm one person who's
Yeah.
going to listen to me. And, even when
There
we
it is.
respond to those calls through Voter Voice for New Jersey Catholic Conference,
Yeah.
those add up, the more people's voices who respond saying, here's why I disagree or agree with this, and, here's what I would like you to take into consideration.
And that I'm sorry, just to kind of deviate on that, but
Mm-hmm.
to reinforce the importance of that. I hear a number of times, when are the bishops going to put out a message? When are the bishops going to do this? And we do have a strategy when we look at legislative issues in
Right.
terms of when to use the tool that you're supposed to use. Like if you're going to fix up your kitchen or do any repair job, you just don't use the sledgehammer all the time. There's an appropriate time to use some of these tactics and strategies. And we may not communicate how we're thinking about that because that's behind the scenes work. But I tell people all the time, like when the bishops need to put out an action alert, when we need to put out a statement, we will. And that doesn't mean all the time,
Right.
because if you do it too much, it loses its effectiveness.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that the Catholics in the pews can't go and meet with their legislative, the legislators at the state level or even at
Yep.
the federal level. And I think they have to hear from the people in the pews more than the bishops because they know what the bishops are going to say,
Right.
Yeah.
but they want to hear what their constituents have to say. And the ability to be powerful and say, I am a Catholic and this is an issue of importance to me and this is what my faith teaches us and this is why it's, why I'm here today, will resonate in some cases even more than bishops sending a collective message again.
Right.
So,
That's a great analogy with the sledgehammer.
yeah.
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 That's, I think that really puts things in perspective.
I mean, some people say the scalpel, use the scalpel and
Yeah.
not the machete, but I'm going to use a little drill bit if I need a little hole. I'm not going to take that sledgehammer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And we're going to take a break in a second so that we can dive into another issue as well. But if people do want to find out more about legislation in New Jersey and where the church stands, what website can they go to?
Sure. So we always say first go to njcatholic.org. That's the conference website. All of our legislative agendas up there. So it lists the issues that we're focused on and why we're focused on them. And then if there is specific legislation that we want Catholics to take action on and know about, that'll be up there as well. So I was telling you before we started the show that we do our best to keep track of all the legislation, but each legislative session there's over 12,000 bills introduced. So, and we're only a staff of 5, so
Yeah.
it's hard to keep track of all of it. And some of it's just not appropriate for the church to weigh in on. But if they want to really get into the weeds and look for legislation, they can go to the New Jersey Legislature website, and you can search all the bills by category there. And if there's a bill that you want to know what the church stands on, or if we have a position on, you find it there. You can contact us, and
Yeah.
it'll let you know. And sometimes that helps us because maybe we've overlooked it, because we are human. So,
Right.
Good point.
Yeah. So Jim's with us today, really to talk about an upcoming conference. It's called it's a statewide conference, Catholic Mental Health Conference. But we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to hear all about that, who's speaking, and who should attend. We'll be right back, everyone.
Bishop Robert Barron on the priesthood.
For the first 1,000 years, there were married priests within the church. There still are married priests under certain circumstances, so it's not absolutely necessary. However, I'm a supporter of it, and I wouldn't want us to move in the direction of kind of optional, some do it, some don't. I get it. And I go back to Paul, and it's Paul's words that are actually in the ordination ritual, about an undivided life, a total gift. I have nothing but the greatest respect for married people. In fact, when I hear the term heroic sanctity, when they talk about saints, I think of parents right away, who give themselves to their kids. But there's something, I think, pure and simple and undivided about the life of celibacy. It's a radical conformity unto the celibate Christ. Why am I celibate? My ultimate answer, because Jesus was, and I'm conformed to him.
The leading Catholic voices are on EWTN Radio.
Too often Christians walk through life as if their circumstances had the final word, as if a bad doctor report, IRS audit, or mean boss were all powerful. We need to start thinking and living as if God is all powerful, because He is. When Paul was in prison, waiting to be beheaded, he wrote things like, "I am pressed, not crushed, persecuted, not abandoned, struck down, not destroyed. In all these things we are more than conquerors because of Him who loved us." He knew he had the upper hand because he had God's hand. A real champion isn't someone who wins all the time. It's someone who can't be defeated. Christians are supposed to walk through life like real champions. People who face the same struggles and trials anyone else does, but unlike anyone else does. Because we saw the final score and we know who wins. I don't know what you're facing today, but I know who has your back, so hold your head up high. Like St. Paul, you're more than a conqueror. This is Chris Stefanik from reallifecatholic.com on EWTN Radio.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Better Together. I'm Jen Morrow,
I'm Emily Italia.
and in studio with us we have James King.
Thank you for having me.
So right before the break, we were talking about that our show today is going to be about an upcoming Catholic Mental Health Conference. It's statewide. It's on May 2nd. And there is quite a panel of speakers coming to talk about this important issue.
I just wanted, before we get too deep into today's discussion, because we are talking about mental health and how we as Catholics can support those who are experiencing mental health challenges, we wanted to just caution listeners that our conversation is going to include the topic of suicide. And so for those for whom this may be a sensitive topic, you might want to reconsider listening to this episode or maybe have someone else screen it for you after it's aired. But just to put that out there, we are going to delve into some sensitive areas today.
Yep.
So the name of the conference is From Isolation to Belonging, Mental Health and the Catholic Church. And that's going to be on May 2nd, beginning at 8:30 a.m. to 3:15 p.m. It's going to be a day-long conference, and it will be at the St. John Newman Pastoral Center in Piscataway. That's at 146 Metlers Lane for those who are interested in attending. And there will be more information and registration available at www.njconf.com. And so if you want to check that out before registration is full, get that on your calendars. But this is important to all of us, and Catholics need to know how to respond in a way that respects our faith and respects those that we're ministering to.
It's one heck of a panel that's going to be speaking, and just to let you know, all of the diocesan media outlets, including the New Jersey Catholic Conference, are going to have a series of articles. The first one is already out. It's kind of just announcing what the conference is, who it's for, speaking with James King in the article, and like I said, every diocese in the state has access to that article. So if you're, no matter what diocese you are here, Patterson, Newark, Metuchen, Camden, and Trenton, and the NJCC, you can see all the articles. That's the first one, and then the rest, each one will feature one of the speakers. So let's talk. You want to talk about the speakers real quick, or just list who they are?
Well, we can list them, and actually, go ahead and let's talk about who's going to be on the panel. And then, I actually listened to a video of one of the panelists talking about his personal experience, and I just wanted to recommend that. It's very moving.
Okay, well, first off, Cardinal Tobin will be the main celebrant of the Mass,
Yes.
which is lovely. It's exciting to see.
He has such a busy schedule, so we're very happy that and thankful that he made time to be with us. And he's going to try to stay for
Good.
a majority of the conference, or as much as the schedule permits. So
Excellent.
and we're hopeful that the other bishops. It's a busy time of year: confirmations, first communions, and then you're quickly approaching ordination season.
Ordinations.
So.
Yeah.
So we're confident the other ordinaries in the state and the auxiliaries in the state will make every effort to attend and be there for not just the Mass, but for the program itself.
Good.
And I think when we tell you who some of the speakers are and what they've spoken about, I think one of the great things about this conference is it is going to talk a lot about the pastoral role, including from bishops and deacons and sisters and pastors, and how important it is to speak from the pulpit about these issues, which gives it more of a to say, hey, you're not alone. And if you're in the pews and you hear your pastor speaking about that, I feel like that's a one-on-one conversation. So I think it's going to be really great. One of the keynote speakers is Bishop John Dolan from from Phoenix Diocese or Archdiocese Diocese of Phoenix, and he has got one heck of a story we'll tell you about in a second. Deacon Ed Schoner, he is a founder of the Association of Catholic Mental Health Ministers. Believe that's out in Scranton.
He's based in
Pennsylvania?
Scranton, but
Okay.
it's and I think it's international. Like I know he's worked with the Holy See and met with Pope Francis on this issue, and he does a lot of work. He's been here in New Jersey before. I think he did the Diocese of Metuchen's Choices Matter conference last year,
okay.
and I think he was also in the Diocese of Trenton last May for a smaller event on mental health. But he's one of the speakers too that has a story that's very compelling and touching. And really his work in mental health came from a very tragic situation that he experienced in his family. So.
It's beautiful that people who have these experiences are willing and able, through the grace of God, to take that experience and that understanding to a new level by being able to talk with others and reassure them that they're not alone when they're dealing with these struggles, and that, people who are in positions of power are also dealing with these sorts of things.
We'll talk about it in a minute, but Bishop Dolan does have many people in his family who have committed suicide.
Sadly,
Yeah, and him and actually Deacon Ed have co-edited a book. It's a handbook on suicide survivors, and so that's something I'm sure that they'll be speaking about as well. The other guests, we have Ben Wortham. He is VP of Behavioral Health Integration for Catholic Charities USA, and
Beth Halvis.
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And Beth, is the program director of the Notre Dame University's Fiat program on faith and mental health. So one heck of a lineup we have.
All-star lineup. But we're very fortunate that all of them were available that day to come to New Jersey and spend the day with us to talk about such an important topic.
So how did the NJCC get involved in? Were you key in organizing this, or?
So it really, as any program in the church comes up, it starts with an identification of a need. And this is not just something that is isolated in New Jersey. USCCB discovered the need as well. And we were kind of on parallel tracks. If you go to our legislative agenda for the past couple of years, mental health is listed on that agenda. So we're trying to find ways to work with the legislature to address these issues through legislation, regulation programs, funding. A number of the Catholic Charities agencies here in New Jersey have emphasized mental health. I know the Diocese of Metuchen, and this is no disrespect to any of the other agencies, it's just the first one that came to my mind, but the Diocese of Metuchen a couple of years ago started their mental health navigator program because they understood that navigating the mental health structure and system could be very difficult. So now they have a number that you can access. I believe a website you can access. Don't ask me for it. I don't know it off the top of my head. I'm sorry, but I could look it up and advertise it. But you can go there and say, this is what I'm going with, and they'll have a response to help you navigate that system. USCCB was doing the same. Catholic Charities USA had implemented a number of new initiatives to help people find these resources easily. So we were working on these parallel tracks, and we received a phone call last January 2025, from one of the staffers down at USCCB and said, we're doing all this work on mental health, but we recognize the next step is we have to take it more to the local level.
Right.
We want to do a state conference, and because of our relationship with USCCB on other initiatives we've worked on, and one thing that I would like to brag about a little bit, so excuse me, is that we've been complimented here in the state in terms of the relationship between the Catholic Conference and the Catholic Charities agencies, and how closely we work together. I haven't seen it, but they tell me that not every state is like that. So because we have that relationship and we do a lot with Catholic Charities USA, they thought New Jersey would be the prime location, the appropriate location to do this first ever statewide conference on mental health in the Catholic Church. So they wanted us to put something together in a matter of 5 months. And when I started talking to the diocesan people, we're like, no, we can't do something statewide in 5 months. So, we went back and forth, and, you talk about the date, and we were talking all the challenges of the date.
Yeah.
There really is no time in the Catholic Church to find like a perfect date to do a conference. So, we just have to pick the least busy time,
Yep.
know.
Right.
So that's really how it came about. It was USCCB and NJCC started collaborating. And then I took it to the diocesan folks, because that really is, they're the essential part. I'm kind of just taking in all the information and trying to make sure all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted on this. But they know, because of the pastoral work they do at the diocesan level, they know the ins and outs of this, and they're the experts.
Yeah.
So I took it to them. We thought it really is something that we should do, and then we presented it to the bishops. And the bishops were 100% on board. They're like, yeah, go ahead and do it. So here we are.
Great.
Yeah.
So in terms of who is invited to attend, is this specifically for people who work in a mental health field? Is it for anyone who wants to attend? Who's being invited?
That's a great question. And that was one of the early challenges we faced once we decided we were moving forward with the conference. It was, who do we direct this
Who's
towards?
the audience?
Yeah,
Yeah.
who's the audience?
Yeah.
Because, and I'm sure you've seen this in your research, and anybody familiar with the mental health field, there's so many specialties. Do you make it a conference about youth and mental health? Do you make it about other demographics and the disproportionate access to care? Do you, do you make it about, we had talk at the time just doing a clergy only track and not making it like, here's another program you have to institute in your parish, but really mental health and clergy issues, because we have seen over the last few years, I knew of a priest, a sad situation. This is about 4 years ago. He took his own life. He was a military chaplain that was actually one of my mentors when I was in the chaplaincy program for the Air Force, and he ended up taking his own life. And then we had the sad situation this past summer in 2025 of the priest in the Diocese of Patterson who took his own life, sadly. And then the other one made national news. We had just a couple months before it, there was an Italian priest, a young man, recently ordained, and I know that kind of made the circuit around the news airwaves, so to say. So we getting back to your question, I'm sorry. We had these conversations like, really, what do we do? How do we attract people to this? And it finally just kind of like clicked as we were talking about it. And I used this example to answer your question of who do we invite and how do we go about this. I used the example of, in a previous life, I was a volunteer firefighter, and my father was a volunteer firefighter, my grandfather and everything. My father used to say to me all the time, he goes, your job is so much harder now as a volunteer firefighter. When I was a volunteer firefighter, all we had to learn was how to put water on the fire. But now you have to know how to, respond to chemical, nuclear, biological hazards. Everything is much more complicated, and you have to go to so much more training.
Yeah.
And it was true. And, they realized not all of us could be specialists in all these areas, but we all had to have a certain level of awareness so we didn't do more harm if we came upon these emergencies. So we kind of took that format. I was like, okay, let's just, for right now, raise awareness and not design a conference that attempts to make others therapists or, the first responders in these situations. But if you can raise awareness and say, here's what you would do initially, here's how you could walk with someone, how you can accompany someone, not solve their problem, not try to be the therapist that's, helps them, but at least let them know they are not alone. And that you may now have an idea of where can I send someone? What resources are out there that I might know of that I can hand off to someone? Because that really is the first part, is breaking down that barrier, making people realize they're not isolated when they are experiencing these issues, and having somebody walk with them. So we call it like the Simon of Cyrene, somebody to help carry that cross. And so once we kind of settled on that, that's why we selected our speakers, and that's really the emphasis of the day. So to the very long-winded answer to say, this conference is for everyone: clergy, religious, lay, teachers, diocesan staff, parish staff, volunteers, people in the pews. It's for anyone to come. And it does have the Catholic emphasis on it, but you don't have to be Catholic to attend, but you will see the teachings of the church and the beauty of the Catholic faith that day.
I like how you mentioned accompaniment. I was listening to a recent, well, not too recent, but recent-ish podcast with Bishop Dolan, because he started his own mental health ministry in the Diocese of Phoenix. It's its own, but it's interesting because it's like Yeah, I think us in the Catholic Church. Like, if you came to me right now and said, "Do you know the closest food pantry?" I could list like 10, right? Like, and probably each of the counties of Camden, Diocese of Camden, easy. But if you came to me and said, "I need mental health help, where could I go?" I would probably be like, "I don't know, but when you find out, let me know." Right? Like,
Yeah.
we don't really talk about it. And Bishop Dolan is very open with speaking about his personal witness with having so many suicides in his family, to say, you know, we have to talk about it to get away from the stigma, from the judgment. Like, he relates a story in the video that's on his on the diocesan website, about how he had a suicide in the family when he was in college, and at the time they were thinking about electing him class president. But when the member committed suicide of his family, they kind of backed off that, like, oh, okay, hold on, like, something's wrong with you as well, like, and he talks very, very bluntly to say, I'm not going to be defined by this or ashamed of this. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it to prevent it from happening more, and also to help the survivors of suicide find some help and heal.
And I think that even, I mean, there's the extreme of suicide, and there's also other mental health struggles that I think there's still a stigma that exists, and 100% did when he was talking about in the 1970s. And I think the first person in his family who committed suicide, he was in 8th grade. It was an older sibling, and he said we didn't talk about it in the 1970s. Within the life of the church, there was just kind of a sense of doubt also about the state of that person's soul, because it's still considered grave matter. But we have a better understanding now of the brain and what happens with chemicals and, a state of mind someone can be in, and culpability. That he said, we didn't have that understanding back then. So we just didn't talk about it. And, you harbor that pain, and it's not processed for so many years. And it kept, subsequently affecting his life until he finally said, I need to get counseling for this and work through it. And he's, I think, a great advocate for it's okay to get help for this. I mean, you wouldn't wander around with a broken leg for 35 years. You would say, I need to address this, or it's not going to heal properly. And we need to start thinking of the mind that way as well, and not, the idea that a person is permanently broken or unable to function in a way that, like, we have to treat them as other.
Right.
And I love this quote he had. He said, "It's no longer mind over matter." That was kind of the attitude.
I wrote that quote down too.
Did you? See, so it was really poignant,
It's really
right?
yeah, it's powerful.
Because he said, if there's something wrong with the mind, if there are problems in the brain, you can't have your mind over what's going on. And so we have to address that, recognize that there could be a lack of oxygen or blood flow, and mental disorder can be a part of that world that we're looking at when someone is going through these big struggles.
He's also talked a lot about, because you're talking about the science of mental health. He's talked a lot about how it's actually science that has informed the church on how to accompany, and how they work together. Like, now that we know that a lack of blood flow to the brain, or you can do an MRI to see that there's actually sometimes literally holes, and science has helped the church grow to say, okay, we need to accompany, and also, talking about the soul. Right. And back in the day, if you committed suicide, you couldn't even be buried.
Right. That's right.
Yeah, right. And that has changed now.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think Emily brought it up, is the point of the culpability aspect. You have to have the element of grave matter, but full consent of mind, body, and soul to enter into that. And in these situations, you have to wonder, was there full consent, free will? Because we don't know what biological or psychological impact condition was going on to impact that ability. So that's a great point.
I was just looking at some statistics for the understanding of just how prevalent this has become in our society. And I don't know how much of it has just been a shift in there's more trouble with mental health, and we're better at recognizing it. Because there certainly was trauma before our current era, but maybe, less recognized, less understood. Right now, like the National Alliance on Mental Health has statistics I think from 2024, 1 in 5 adults, that's 23.5% in the United States, are experiencing some form of mental illness each year. And among the youth, between ages 6 and 17, it's 1 in 7. So this is significant.
Yeah.
It's not something we can ignore or sweep under the rug. And we as Catholics need to know how to respond in a way that respects our faith, because I believe you mentioned in the article, Jim, that there are methods that don't align with Catholic teaching.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not a mental health expert,
Yeah.
but I think if you know your faith and you try to live your faith, if you're presented with an option, you kind of get that initial sense that I don't know if this completely aligns, or is it is really respecting the dignity of the person.
Right. We need some guidance.
I mean, just anecdotally, having spoken to people, again, this is not an official research or anything, but just having conversations about mental health. You do hear of stories of people going to a therapist, and the therapist kind of saying, well, do what makes you feel good.
Yeah.
Well, and we all know that sometimes what makes us feel good isn't
Right.
morally acceptable,
Right.
So we do want to help Catholics, we want to help Catholics live their faith, and in all areas. And if that means going to a therapist that has the foundational understanding of the Catholic faith and respects that, and will integrate whatever treatment they provide to the individual is fully integrated with the Catholic faith, that's, I think that's a win for us,
Right. And it's such an intimate relationship mentally to have with a mental health professional. It needs to be someone you can trust wholeheartedly, is not going to tread on your faith, is not going to present ideas or suggestions that are going to run contrary to that. So how are there going to be some resources at the conference that help people to find a professional that they trust?
So we do have, and if anybody listening works in this area, we invite them to go to our website, which is the njconf.com. We do have opportunities for exhibitor tables. Right now we have several of the Catholic Charities agencies here in New Jersey signed up, so they're going to bring their resources, and we've reached out to a few others who I don't want to say because they haven't definitively confirmed.
Sure.
We have a tentative confirmation, so I don't want to put them on the hook.
Right.
But maybe I should just so they sign up. But yeah, but
pressure.
Yeah, pressure
with
that. Yeah, but I have to maintain my relationship with these organizations post conference.
I know,
So
you're very good like that.
But yes, we do plan on having some resources available, and the speakers will be available throughout the day. One of the key aspects of the schedule will be the end of the day is going to be a panel Q&A. So
Oh, great.
we're going to ask people throughout the day to write questions down, and it's really just going to be a free for all. Just
Yeah.
up there, a moderator asking the questions and letting the panel answer. So.
I love that.
I like that. Yeah, I was talking to a friend of mine in Catholic Charities the other day about this conference, because I was asking about Catholic Charities' role, and we were talking about situational versus if you're diagnosed with schizophrenia, there's not much you can do about that. It's in you, right? That is what you will be living with. Other kinds of mental illness can be depending on your situation. Am I living in poverty? Am I a spouse of domestic violence? And that leads into mental health. We specifically spoke about domestic violence, or if you're a woman, let's say, and you're sitting in the pews and you're thinking, you're obviously, you have anxiety and depression, and you're thinking, well, it's my fault, right? Like I did something and that's why I'm in this position. But then you hear your pastor or a priest talk from the pulpit about domestic violence and realizing, oh, hold on a second, this isn't my fault. And how that can mean so much, and that can change the tone of mental health as well, and kind of make you come outside yourself and get that help.
Yeah, and as you were talking about that, I was just thinking of my own personal experience. I lost both my parents back in 2023 in a relatively short amount of time. So it was my mother passed away in May of that year, and then my father 32 days later passed away. And thank you. And I'm an only child, and they had their health issues for several years prior to their passing. And, I could still think of like the phone call coming in the middle of the night or at the most inconvenient time that one of them was being taken to the hospital or something happened at their home. And it just completely disrupted my life, which, I understood as their son. I loved them and I wanted to help them, but you couldn't help battle those feelings of anger and like, oh, again, I got to go do this or, I got to do that. And the transition that happened after they passed there was a sense of relief that came. And that was a hard thing to deal with in terms of now feeling guilty that I was like going, am I actually happy my parents are gone? And then thinking about all the times that I got angry and like, oh, I could have helped them better. Maybe they would still be alive if, I had been more patient, and having, not that I went into official, therapy, but having access to people that had better understandings of the grieving process that I was able to talk to, I think helped prevent me from going down some paths that were not healthy, that could lead to even more harmful. You hear about people self-medicating through narcotics or drinking, and which I have to be mindful of. We have a history of alcoholism in my own family, and just having the ability to talk and say, no, it's okay to feel relieved. And I'll never forget too, because the first moment of guilt came. My father passed away on June 10th. June 11th, I took my wife and children. We already had tickets. We went up to see Ed Sheeran at MedLife Center. And my wife and I were on the turnpike, and I'm driving, and I stopped. And I said to my wife, she goes, what? And I go, I just realized this is the first time in my entire life I don't have to worry about a phone call that something happened to my mom or dad. Like, this is the first event I could turn off my phone and nobody's going to call. Like, I won't be like, oh God, is somebody going to call me? And I remember that's when the guilt first started to set in. So it's absolutely right. Like what you're saying, Jen, about, if you can play a lot of scenarios in your head and you can lead yourself into a lot of bad places. So having that external to unload to and have an external say, no, it's not you. In some cases it might be you, but most of the time it's it's not you. Yeah, it's not you. You're being too hard on yourself, which we traditionally all are.
Yes,
anyway.
100%. And I think also, and Bishop Dolan uses the word accompaniment, which we've already talked about. But the way I was looking at it, it's like when I was listening to him, I'm like, well, if I might be accompaniment, doesn't mean that I'm okay. Maybe it just means that I'm okay that day. Because I think sometimes we can get into this idea where I feel good about myself because I helped somebody today. But we all, like you said, we all play these games with ourselves, right? And so in this, I think, instance specifically, I think we can all accompany each other because we've all been through something at some point in our lives that has gotten us to a down place.
It's the story, and I'm going to bring this up because I know this is for Mike. I'm going to give Mike, your colleague, a shot. But the story told in the one episode of The West Wing, the one character is going through PTSD, and his boss comes to him and he says, and he's going, why do you care so much? And the boss says, have I ever told you a story about the man who fell down the hole walking on the sidewalk? And, people come by and he's shouting up, can you give me help? And everybody's ignoring him. And finally somebody comes by and he goes, hey, can you give me help? And the guy jumps in the hole, and the person already in the hole goes, why'd you do that? Now we're both stuck down here. And he goes, yeah, but I've already been down here once. I know the way out.
Oh,
wow.
So I think that's that's it. So nobody's saying they're perfect. Nobody says they're completely healed. But if we've gone through these experiences, you can be a resource because you know the way out, or you at least have an idea of what direction to start heading in.
Exactly. Yeah.
And people can experience these challenges. They can be something that sneaks up on them. And maybe it isn't an instance of trauma that brings it about. But maybe it's a change in life, or just, not realizing that, oh, wow, I've just kind of been feeling this either low mood or anxiety. And you just get so accustomed to that feeling. It just becomes like, well, this is just part of my personality. When in fact, it could be something that could be bettered by talking to somebody about it, and just getting that other perspective. And I think about people who, are aging. And, maybe they've seen a lot of their family members already pass on ahead of them. Maybe their social circle has diminished because, of their age. They're losing people, and finding a way to process that, so that the years that you're experiencing toward the end of your life can be, not constantly filled with that sorrow,
Right.
but just, recognizing your life as a Catholic and your relationship with Jesus and ways to cope with, what probably seems like a lot of loss, and maybe loneliness, if you're not getting out and being social with other people, you don't have that network, it's important to recognize that we need other people in our lives in order to stay mentally healthy.
Hmm.
And maybe we need that reminder just from a professional or support group.
Yeah, and the reminder to say, like, and there's nothing, it's like looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, is this who I am now?
Yeah.
Nobody wants to stay in that place. It can be, very dark. So
It can be scary to get out of that place too. If
Yeah.
you've been there for a
Yeah.
while,
yeah,
to think, oh, I have to do something different in order to change this. And maybe I'd like to be at the opposite end of this, but the journey getting there is daunting. It's feeling like you don't have to make that on your own, I think is really important.
I think, and that's essential to living our faith, because if you're going through these situations, and we're always told God loves you. You weren't, an accident. You have dignity. You have worth. He gave His life for you. There's a very academic feel to that because it comes from Scripture. You read it and you pray about it, but the way we come to know God's love for us is first and foremost through our faith in the sacraments and learning about that. But secondarily, it comes from our interactions with others. And we have a responsibility to communicate that love God has for everyone, especially those who may be feeling isolated or cut off from society, because you can sit there and read and be told that, God loves you, you're important to Him. He gave His only Son up for you. And if you don't, see that in other areas of your life, you could start to doubt that. Like, nobody cares about me. I'm here by myself. Nobody checks in on me. So we have to be those instruments for the Lord to ensure everybody else knows how much they are worth and how much He loves them and cares for them and wants the best for them.
For sure.
it's like it's you ever watch like these TV shows and it's like when somebody wants to be a new person or lose weight and stuff, they get their music montage.
Yes.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I need a music montage.
Yes.
You
Right,
know?
let's fast forward through all the hard work.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
just like, it makes it look so easy. And it's not just like
No.
we were talking about being in that hole,
Yeah.
like from the West Wing.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and then that guy, I love that story that he jumps in there because it's like, it's not easy like a music montage. I have tried.
Yeah.
I have the montage music part, but the rest of
That's the easy part. I have my Spotify playlist.
Yeah, right?
And it doesn't make my workout go any easier. Although it does make it a little bit easier. I'll say that.
Yeah, well, that idea of muscling through something. I'm just gonna push through,
Yeah.
like it's physical exercise or something. That doesn't necessarily work with our mental health. There's no shame at all in seeking someone to walk that path with you
Absolutely not.
and to help you get on a track, and then to keep you, accountable or keep, revisiting it so that it's not a one and done kind of thing. I'm going to meet with someone and talk about my problems and then they're all over.
Right.
It's
Right.
an ongoing healing process and development of understanding, particularly if it's something that happened a long time ago and it's been buried for a while or it just hasn't been completely dealt with.
Like the broken leg idea.
Yep.
Well, we have about 2 minutes, or maybe 1 minute. What were your last minute thoughts there, Jim?
We still have about a month to go or a little over a month, 6
Yeah.
weeks until the conference. There's still plenty of spots. If you want to join us on May 2nd, just go to njconf.com and the registration link is right there. So we hope you'll take some time out of your day, either for the full day or part of the day. And we really hope this is the first in terms of a series of work that'll be done. Hopefully this will start conversations at the local level. So thank you again for having me on. This is always a pleasure, and
Oh, it's been
I really
delightful.
enjoy it. This is a great conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, one that we need.
Yes, we do. Everybody, yep. As Jim said, please register soon. It is limited seating, so jump in there and get in there.
Yeah, 300. So once we hit that 300, you're going to be on a wait list.
That's right.
And we have a really good caterer lined up. So for nothing else, come for the food.
I think we were wondering, is there going to be any opportunity? Will there be a recording or anything live streamed that people will be able to revisit, or is that not going to be
We
set
are
up this time
currently in
around?
discussions about
Okay.
that, but we really think this is a topic that people have to be in person for, and really kind of treat it like a retreat. You
Yeah.
wouldn't take your phone or your tablet on retreat. You want to be there so you can be fully immersed into the day and hear what's going on. So, while live streaming allows more people to attend, it doesn't necessarily eliminate the distractions.
Good idea.
That's great.
All right, so everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to put some of the resources, including how to register for this event, in the show notes. James, thank you so much for joining
Thank you.
us.
It's always a
Thank you.
pleasure.
This is
I love
great.
it. Thank you.
Emily, and everybody, I hope you have a great month, and we will talk soon.
Sounds good.